A group of German members of parliaments are visiting Azerbaijan to become familiar with the socio-political situation in the country. Former Vice President of European Commission Gunther Verheugen is among them. A famous German politician, Gunther Verheugen, served as European Commissioner for Enlargement from 1999 to 2004, and then as European Commissioner for Enterprise and Industry. He was also one of 5 Vice Presidents of the European Commission. He gave an exclusive interview to Azerbaijan State Telegraph Agency.
We know you as an active supporter of the enlargement of the European Union. What is your forecast about the future of this process? Which countries have more chances for membership in the future? And how you see Azerbaijan-EU relations in this context?
I was the commissioner who was responsible for the accession negotiations with 12 countries plus Turkey, so I can say I have some experience. And I have to say that right now, enlargement is not high on the agenda of the European Union. People are preoccupied with crisis management, but I can tell you it will change, and a new window of opportunity will come. I think we must stick to the principle that is enshrined in the European Treaty, that every European nation has the right to apply. But the most important thing is to stick to the principle that we have a policy of open door, and that nobody can be excluded if he wants to be and to become a member. Now, for the time being, Croatia will be a member next year. We are negotiating with Turkey and Iceland. Negotiations with Turkey are very sluggish and cumbersome, and not much progress is made. Iceland is not such an important case. The next countries, in my view, which will begin to negotiate membership will be Macedonia and Montenegro. Now the question of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is part of the neighborhood policy, is actively participating in the Eastern Partnership. And when I have designed the European neighborhood policy in 2003 and 2004, the idea was not to create it as a substitute or compensation for countries which do not have a membership perspective, but the idea was to have it as a preparation for the next step of enlargement, and eventually the participating countries would join based on their merits and their capacities. That is still my position. So my view is people in Brussels must acknowledge that Azerbaijan is a European country, belongs to Europe, and has a justified right to become a member if Azerbaijan wants to become a member. This will not happen overnight. It will take some time. But I can tell you from my experience working with a lot of countries in a transformation process, it makes the transformation of a country much easier if there is a clear and credible European perspective for this country. And that's the reason why I am urging my friends in Brussels to give Azerbaijan such a credible and clear European perspective. The European Union could make a contribution if the European Union would have a solid opinion here. As far as I know, there is no common opinion in the European Union. I think it would make a difference if the 27 member states of the European Union would join their forces, would have a common position and put their weight on the political process. My view today is that majority of EU member states is simply watching, sitting on the fence. I think they think that the whole conflict is a nuisance. And they do not want to be involved. I do not believe in the concept of the frozen conflict. On the long run, if there is a conflict, you cannot freeze it. You must try to find a solution which is acceptable for both sides. So unfortunately, we are very, very far away from this, and I really feel a little bit ashamed that the European Union is not active in this field and does not play an active role to find a solution. This is a very important question because there was a remarkable change here during the last years. When I was in Brussels, Azerbaijan was not seen as an important strategic partner. It was seen as a little bit an odd, exotic place, not of much interest for us. But that has completely changed. So Azerbaijan is now seen as a country of the highest strategic importance for Europe. It is clearly a priority country. You have seen that the President of the Commission was in Baku last year. The President of the Council will come in a couple of weeks. So it shows that there is now a very, very strong interest in Brussels. And what is the interest in Brussels? The interest is, of course, to have Azerbaijan in our camp, to see Azerbaijan as part of our community. In order to create a stable political environment for our trade relations, and the most important part of trade relations between the European Union and Azerbaijan, obviously, would be supply of gas and oil. But not only the fact that Azerbaijan has rich resources of oil and gas is important here. On top of that, the political role of Azerbaijan in the region is of a strategic importance for the European Union. Azerbaijan being a stable country, a predictable partner, can play an important role to stabilize the whole region and to make the whole region a partner region for the European Union.
Mr. Verheugen, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe has announced its agenda for the summer session. This session will discuss economic, political and democratic crises in Europe, populist extremism and its threat to the democracy. In the light of dangerous challenges facing Europe, some political circles in Germany, Bundestag members, media conduct a based campaign on alleged human rights violations in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has over 1 million refugees whose rights were violated. German member of parliament have not mentioned about it for over 20 years, but now speak about human rights violations in Azerbaijan. This double standard sparks serious protest of Azerbaijan society. What is your opinion on this issue as an experienced politician?
I can tell you that I was really surprised when this campaign started. It came out of the blue. And obviously it was a negative side effect of the Eurovision Song Contest. I think it is not too difficult to find weak points in every country. There's not a single country in the world that is perfect. Even Switzerland or Norway or Sweden are not perfect, and Germany clearly not perfect. There are always weak points. But a fair judgment would not only focus on weak points. In a fair judgment, you would take into account the political environment, your starting point, your strategic situation, and in particular, you would take into account your own efforts. You would try to understand in which direction is a country heading. And in the case of Azerbaijan, it is so obvious that this country is heading towards the right direction, and therefore my view is Azerbaijan should be encouraged and should be supported, and one should not speak about Azerbaijan in a way that I can only explain as a total lack of real knowledge, of understanding, and I'm afraid to say there's also a lack of goodwill. So my advice for Azerbaijan would be not to overreact and not to put too much emphasis on it, but to intensify contacts and dialogue. As I've already said, there seems to be a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding, and we can do a lot in order to change that. So the visit of the group, which is in Azerbaijan today, is already a first important step. In this group, we have very influential opinion makers in Germany, and I can tell you from my discussions with my friends in that group that everybody is really impressed by the progress that we have seen in this country. And we will go back to Germany and will tell our people, Azerbaijan is not like certain media in our country tell you. Azerbaijan is a country with friendly people, hospitable, and trying very, very hard to meet European standards as far as democracy, rule of rights, and human rights are concerned. And we should help them and should not discredit them.
You mentioned Eurovision Song Contest. Probably you watched this show.
I'm absolutely not interested in that kind of music. I didn't watch it. But I understand that this event was very important for your country. That's the reason why I followed closely the media coverage and the discussion in Germany. And my impression was that the event was received very, very well, and that it contributed a lot to improve the reputation of Azerbaijan in the rest of Europe. In order to avoid the wrong impression, when I have said that I'm not interested in that kind of music, I have to say I'm very much interested in music. For instance, I found very interesting the traditional music of your country that I could listen during my stay here in Baku. Is something that you cannot hear very often in Germany, but I found it really fascinating and I liked it.
Do you mean Muga?
You are traditional music.
Muga.
Yeah. I would say that this culture should be better known in the rest of Europe.